Welcome to episode 131 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Dan Croll to discuss his fantastic new album, Fools. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to John McClure from Reverend and the Makers. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. Before we begin, here's Daniel Lynch with what's been happening on XS Noize this week.
In the reviews section, Laurie Gava gives a near-perfect score to the new album from Sufjan Stevens, Timo Andres and Conor Hannock. Reflections is the instrumental soundtrack to a ballet of the same name. Laurie says it's an engaging addition to Stevens' discography and shows his ability to produce worthy music regardless of genre. Welcome to Okuma Rising is the second album of Woody Guthrie lyrics the Dropkick Murphys have put to their trademark Celtic punk sound. Ian Byrne says the album shows Guthrie and Dropkick Murphys as comfortable bedfellows with great synergy, 5 stars. Finally, Niall Donnelly has been listening to Age of Apathy solo sessions from Grammy nominee Aoife O'Donovan. It's an 8-track acoustic version of her third album, and the stripped-back sounds allows listeners to rediscover and redefine her music. Read the reviews and stay up to date with new releases and tour news at xsnoize.com.
Fools finds Dan Croll at a crossroads, documenting recent events with warmth and wit to help him decide which direction to take. 5 years after leaving Liverpool for sun-soaked LA, which transformed his sound, Fools poses a fundamental question: is it finally time to come home? In this interview, Dan talks about writing and recording the album, meeting Sir Paul McCartney, his time in LA, and whether he's a blue or a red. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Dan Croll. Hi Dan, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Very good, it's great to have you. Where are you today?
I am at home in Los Angeles at the moment.
And I suppose it's sunny in Los Angeles, is it?
You know what, it's a little bit gloomy today, but I mean, generally, yeah. I generally don't like to talk about the weather here because I think it upsets people sometimes. Usually when my family ring me and they're like, how's the weather? I have to just pretend and just say it's raining. They'll get jealous.
I'd like to go back to the start. Can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
I think I remember like my first piece of music in terms of like just being like just like infatuated with the sound of it. And I remember we had like a really old, like JVC hi-fi system, when I was a really young kid. And I think I can't remember what the album was, but it was a Michael Jackson album. And I remember the song, is it Black or White? And I remember just hearing that and just like putting the headphones on and just like blasting the volume and just being like kind of mesmerized by these sounds. But then I think I definitely really got into music when I was kind of just a teenager. My sister had, to me, excellent taste in music, and she started introducing me to a lot of bands. And I guess it was that kind of like indie wave around that time. I remember being like in love with the Thrills. That was like a big band for us in our house, and just really getting into that.
Yeah, they had the track Big Sir. It was a big hit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they had tons. I think that was one of the first gigs I went to as well, was a Thrills gig in Stoke.
Yeah, where are they now? I don't know.
No idea. No, but I mean, I'm definitely going to listen to them after this.
Has music always been the career path that you wanted to follow once you got into music, or did you have other ambitions growing up?
No, not at all. Weirdly, my main drive growing up was playing rugby. That was my main thing, and that's what I was doing really well at for a large part of my life growing up. And yeah, I played rugby until about 17. Kind of had a bit of a career-ending injury, broke my leg, and that kind of put an end to it all. And I mean, who knows if I would have gone, the full distance, but it was certainly like an aspiration of mine for a long time. But when I broke my leg, it was terrible. And I was kind of basically out of the game for like a year. And during that year, kind of found music. And then, yeah, it kind of started dawning kind of on me that music was a job and it could be a really fun job. And I did play a couple of instruments in our house. It was, definitely pushed for us to, be able to play an instrument, which I'm very grateful for, obviously now, because it's my job. And so, yeah, so I'd say around 17, 18 is when I decided to flip over to music. And so kind of feel like I've been on the back foot since,
Well, you were named Songwriter of the Year by the Musicians Benevolent Fund while attending LIPA in Liverpool. And because of that, you were given the chance to work with LIPA founder Sir Paul McCartney. That must have been an amazing experience. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, a bonkers experience. That was, that was wild. I mean, it's like, well, what else can you say? It's just, it's Paul McCartney. I think, you know what? One thing about that meeting that I think weirdly worked really in my favor was, even though it was highly stressful, but the night before we played a show in London and kind of disastrously missed the last train back to Liverpool. And so was just like, I can't believe I'm going to miss this kind of session with Paul McCartney in the morning because I missed the last train. And so I ended up having to take like the night bus from London to Liverpool, which was like 6.5 hours. And so I was just absolutely exhausted, made it back in time, met, Sir Paul McCartney at like 8 a.m. in the morning, and just like disheveled, just so tired. And I think it actually worked really well because I remember there's a few other people who got to kind of work with him that day and they couldn't compose themselves. They were just shaking. They were just kind of having meltdowns because they were just so kind of in awe and everything. And I think I would have been had it not been for some kind of sleep deprivation. And so so it was like quite a calm kind of chilled morning really with him. And yeah, I remember playing a few songs for him. And yeah, one of the songs I played for him was a song called Home. That was off my first album. And, he was kind of just like harmonizing along. I think that actually, that was one of the things that like kind of really blew me away because I had come to music very late in life compared to my peers who I was studying with. And so I felt very behind. These people had been playing instruments since they were like 5 years old. They released an album when they were 13 or something. They were much further ahead than me. And they were kind of on their instruments as well. And I remember just like Paul McCartney coming into the room and just grabbing a guitar and like asking me to play some songs. And then as I'm playing these songs, him just like learning it and playing along at the same time, and how quick he was to catch on to where the chords were going, the movement of the song, the melody. And, you are just like, yeah, he is a really good musician. It's not just like this thing of like, yeah, he was in this great band and he could just like play those songs really well. No, he was like, he's insanely talented. And that kind of just blew me away that he was just within seconds playing the song that I wrote along with me.
Wow, and there's not many people can say that, really, is there?
No, yeah, he suggested a couple of harmonies on it as well. I feel bad that I didn't give him any credits on the song. I'll probably owe him some PRS.
And were you with him all day?
No, it was like over in the blink of an eye. I think it was about an hour and a half. But yeah, an incredible experience, and then got to kind of meet him again once more when I graduated. But yeah, just once in a lifetime kind of thing. Very lucky.
Absolutely. And you said you were late to the table at writing songs. So can you remember when you started writing songs, or can you even remember the first song that you wrote that you thought, right, this is a really good song?
I think it was around kind of 16, 17, really. It was around the time of the injury. Basically, it was just such a bad leg break that I couldn't go upstairs. I had like a cast from my kind of hip down to my toes, and so my entire bedroom got kind of moved to the dining room, which had my sister's piano in and my mum's old guitar. And so I just kind of started messing around on those, and like I kind of wrote songs, if you could call them that. They were just kind of teenage angst kind of songs. And then I like kind of very kind of quite last minute applied for Lipper because I'd kind of been raised in Liverpool and I knew it was a special place. And then I kind of got in there mainly from a cover, really, if I'm going to be honest. It wasn't really, I played some of my own songs, a couple, but I'd also done a cover. It was kind of like a jazz cover. It was one of the first songs that I learned not long before then. And so I played that and managed to get in. And I think, not quite sure how I got in, but I did. But I remember within that first kind of 6 months writing a few songs that I think were just like, oh, actually, I think I'm here for a reason now. I think it gave me, it was a big confidence boost. And so I just started to write songs, and there was the first couple of songs that I wrote. One was called Home, which was the one I played for Sir Paul McCartney, and one that's, done very well off my first album. And another one was called Marion. And yeah, those two songs I still look back on and I'm incredibly proud of them. But that was the first moment that I feel, because of that confidence of people just being like, oh yeah, you should, come to this music institute, that was a kind of confidence booster I needed.
When you're writing songs, what do you think is most important? A great melody or a great lyric?
I think good question. I think I've always swayed more to the melody in the past, but I think that's because I've always struggled with lyrics. I found lyrics very hard. I've always really enjoyed writing almost instrumentals. And I feel that's how I started a lot of songs. People around me would always be there with their kind of notepads writing lyrics, just like from, just plucking them out of thin air. And I just could never do that. I always had to have something to work off, even if it was just like a beat or a chord loop or something like that. And so, so I think melody has always come first for me. But that said, definitely in the past few years, I've been trying to push myself to kind of put more time into lyrics and, try and get a message across, get a story across. And I've really enjoyed that. I'd say since my last album, Grand Plan, that was one where I really was very strict with myself. I'd just moved to Los Angeles and I had just bought like a 4-track recorder. And so there was no temptation to get too swept up in production or other instruments. And I would just sit on my bed in my first sublet here, and I would not kind of stop until I wrote one song start to finish, just guitar and vocals. And so it forced me to put more time into lyrics and concentrate on that. So I think now maybe I sway more towards lyrics.
And you mentioned you're in LA. You've been there 5 years now. So why did you choose to move there? Was it for musical reasons? You thought maybe, right, I'll get more inspiration in a sunnier climate?
I think there was a few thoughts running through my head. Before I'd probably moved here. I moved here in like January, February. But the kind of November before Christmas, we just finished a US tour. And it was just so much fun. Like, we've always had fun touring the US or touring any part of the world. Love touring. But for some reason, that one was just like very special to me. There was a great band who I was on tour with, a great crew. And we just had an amazing time. And I remember we ended in Los Angeles in end of November. And I was just going to fly home, get back for Christmas. And probably for like the first time at the end of a tour, I'd not wanted to go home. I think the main reason for that was because I think I was living in Liverpool. I've spent pretty much most of my life there in that city, and I love it to death. But people were just settling down and life was easy and ticking these very kind of like adult boxes. And I kind of wasn't ready for that. I still feel like it, I still wanted a bit of an adventure. And so, I thought, well, LA was fun. So, and then funnily enough, in January after that Christmas, when you get those like, those kind of like spam emails in January where it's like, join the gym, new body, new you, all of these kind of like pushing these things on you. One of them happened to be a one-way ticket to LA. And so I bought it and flew 2 weeks later.
And did it take time to adapt to the LA lifestyle for you?
Yeah, still haven't. Yeah. Yeah, it's really tough. It's a very tough city. Yeah, been here about 5.5 years now. Didn't know anybody here. And so, yeah, just tough as an adult to learn how to make friends again and go through all those hoops and try and ingrain yourself in the industry again. And yeah, it was a complete restart, a hard reset. And so it took years, really, to be honest. It took those first 2-3 years really tough. And then I think just as I thought I'd kind of got it, COVID hit. And so, that was that. We don't need to go into that. But and so, yeah, so it's been tough. But yeah, I mean, I'm leaving next month. And weirdly, in the past 6 months, I feel like I've actually hit my stride here and been the most comfortable I've been. So that's life,
You're leaving to go back to Liverpool, are you?
I'm moving to London next month. London?
Yeah. Well, anyway, congratulations on your new album, Fools. It's out now. Have you any rituals you do on release day? How do you celebrate the release?
I just let out a big sigh. That's what I do. Pure relief. To be honest, that is it. It's just, you just forget how long you've been around these songs, from the moment of just like coming up with them, demoing them, recording them, getting ready for release and all of that stuff. Fools came out, last week, and in my head, it's been complete maybe for like a year, or it's been a whole year 2 process. So it's just that feeling of like relief that it's out there. And so yeah, I just basically, I drove around. Actually, this is my ritual, to be honest. I usually just drive around and listen to them in the car, just kind of like aimlessly. And that's kind of what I did. I just drove around in traffic and played them really loud and felt very proud of myself. And yeah, very proud of myself, very proud of the music. I think it all came out really well, and worked with such an amazing team that I've worked with, for the past 2 releases, and just love what they bring to my songs.
Well, that's the main test. Playing it in the car. If it sounds all right in the car.
Absolutely. I think
you're sort of.
I think so. I think it's because a lot of my friends are mix engineers, and they always kind of do that. And they like they said, they always say, like, if it sounds good in the car, it sounds good on anything, So I always just like drive around. Also, I love driving, especially in America. It's a funny place to drive, and lucky to live in a very nice kind of area around here next to the hills. So I just aimlessly drive around and listen to my own music.
Did you go into the recording and writing of the album with any preconceived ideas how you wanted it to sound and the kind of songs you wanted to write about?
I don't think so. I think, like I said earlier, like with Grand Plan, that was a big turning point, moving to LA and being a bit stricter with myself in terms of like restricting my time spent on other instruments or production and stuff like that, and just concentrating on the core of the song, and also just wanting it to be very autobiographical. I wanted it to be very real. These are all stories. These are all things that I'm going through right now. Whether they're niche or they are shared amongst other people as well, that's what the songs are about. And so that was basically Fools. It was Grand Plan again. It was just documenting these times in my life and keeping it very honest, keeping it very personal, keeping it very real. And so anytime anything would kind of just happen to me, I kind of just force myself to sit down and document it, just like a kind of journal or a diary. And so, yeah, so each one of these tracks is a very kind of, it's nice to be able to listen to my own song and kind of just instantly identify that period of my life, when that was, what was happening, who the kind of characters were. And so, yeah, so I feel like that was it again. It wasn't any kind of concept or any kind of idea of, I want it to be in this kind of vein, or I want it to be about this thing. It was all just like, there are happy songs or sad songs, because either I was very happy or very sad. And there were very specific moments in my life over the past year, 2 years.
Well, Matthew E. White, who produced your last album, Grand Plan, is back again on this album. So what is it in your musical relationship that works so well? What does he bring to the recordings?
He brings himself, his music, his inspirations, I guess like anyone would. But I think previously I've worked with producers who are, I think, kind of more strict in their role of producers, and they have tons of experience in production and not so much in the kind of musical kind of area, or like their own, they haven't had their own releases or their own music that much. They've always worked in studios. But with Matt, that was a point in my life where I really I thought my music would really benefit from someone who's not only a producer, but an artist, and a current artist as well at that, who still has their own music, who still is active with that kind of stuff. And so I'd kind of compiled this list of people whose music I really love and follow, and who could bring that to my music. And Matt was right up at the top of that list. I'm a big fan of Matt's music and have been for a long time. There was a song called Eyes Like the Rest of Us that I remember when I heard, I was just like, this is it. Like, this is how I want my album to sound. This is beautiful. The production, the performances, everything about it, I loved. And so, so I just hit up Matt and I was like, I'd love to work with you. And he was based in Richmond, Virginia, and I'd never been there before. And a part of me was like, oh, do you want to come to LA and do this? And he was just like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. But I guess I'm going to Richmond, Virginia, and like, kind of didn't know what to expect. But honestly, it's been the most kind of magical part of my life, has been getting to work with these incredible musicians in Richmond. They've got such an incredible scene there. And so I think that's what Matt brought. Matt didn't just bring himself. He also brought this incredible community of other musicians, of my now manager. He is Richmond and came from that kind of Spacebomb family. And Matt had his own studio at Spacebomb. And so, it wasn't just Matt. It was like a whole community, and their inspirations, their sounds, their style of playing. I feel like I get so much joy now listening to my own music and hearing what, the bass player Cameron or Alan, the guitar player, these parts I could never come up with. And so they're just so special to me that's them.
Well, it's a very joyful and uplifting sounding record. I mean, you've certainly soaked up some of the LA vibes that definitely come through in the album. Slip Away, it's about wondering, from what I gather, it's about wondering if you could exist outside the music industry and how you could survive in a 9-to-5 job. What else can you tell me about it?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was, I think every year I have a period where I want to throw in the towel. Music it's a tough industry, and especially over the kind of COVID period, it was especially tough trying to survive off it. And so, I think Hollywood, LA, it's brutal. It's a dark place, at times. And so, so I just I guess I was just wondering if, I can survive, if it's all worth it, and whether it'd just be easier to get a more 9-to-5 and just exist elsewhere as well, like not in a major city. I think that was a thing for me. I was like, all the time. One of my favorite things to do is to go on like a housing app and just look for like houses in the middle of nowhere, just like you kind of, I don't know, just like the west coast of Scotland or something like that. And just be like, this is what I could maybe afford there. And I could live this easier life, a cheaper life, and not have to pay extortionate rent of Los Angeles or London or major cities. And just like, it would give me creative freedom, artistic freedom, more time for that kind of stuff. Obviously there are downsides. I'd be lonely as hell, but it was that kind of thought process of like, why do we choose to put ourselves in these positions? Because I chose to put myself in this position. I'm the one who moved to Los Angeles without knowing anyone. I'm the one who, decided to move to this area and to put these burdens on my shoulders and these costs on my shoulders. And so, it was kind of like frustration at myself, I guess. Just, should I go elsewhere?
And if you did have to take another or a 9-to-5 job, have you thought about what sort of job would appeal to me? What could I do?
Well, now, funnily enough, I wrote that song And then probably a month or two after that, I wrote that song. My friend got me a job as a podcast producer, editor, audio production, for a fantastic company that I still work for. Still a balancing act at the moment between music and this. And it's like a meditation app called Headspace. And I work with like Sesame Street, made the Sesame Street Kids podcast.
Wow.
Finished that this month, which is hilarious. And so it's a very different life. And actually, it's done wonders, as well as like for the first time in my life, having a steady paycheck. It's also just brought some structure to my life, I guess. It gets me up at a very specific time in the morning, and there's some commuting, and there's like this structure that I've never really had. Also, I've always been the boss of my own company, and people have relied on me for their incomes, band members and their families. And so it was nice to have that relief of like, no one's, I'm not the provider anymore, which is really nice. It was nice to have someone else take that pressure. And so, yeah, so that's still ongoing. So yeah, I guess that's what I do.
My favorite song on the album is Friend of Mine. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, that one nearly didn't end up on the album, to be honest. I always find this funny because there's always songs that there's usually one or two every album that you're like, I don't know about this song. And usually it's like my manager or my label or the producer who are just like, no, come on, keep this one on the album. And so that one was one of the tracks on this album that I was like, I don't know if it's that strong. But I'm so glad it stayed on the album, because when we took it to Richmond, and Matt and the guys just elevated that song, and kind of reignited a bit of confidence for me in that song. But that one is about, I had just gone through a breakup, and I went back home, for Christmas, and I feel like everyone probably has that one friend in their life where they only probably see them once a year, but it's just effortless. Like you can just see them once a year, and yeah, it's so weirdly effortless. Conversation just carries on like you saw them a week before, the ease of conversation, the topics, and it's just lovely, really. And being social is such a huge thing for me, and like week in, week out, or, every weekend I've got to see people, and actually it kind of like, cemented that feeling of like, I don't need to stress about that kind of thing. And like how the real true friendships, they don't need that kind of like constant week in, week out kind of, nurturing, or like that kind of like, don't need to constantly check in. It can just be this beautiful thing that happens once a year, and then you don't need to see it for, it can just be another year without seeing them, and it's just effortless again, and it's beautiful.
What song on the album do you feel most connected to?
Most connected to, I mean, there's quite a few, to be honest, because they are all very personal, and they are, especially on this album, there's a couple that were definitely like big moments in my life. Like if it's a breakup, or, I mean, there's a few. I feel like Talk to You was a big one about my breakup, but I'd say the most connected to was Sunshine. That one was a pretty traumatic period of the last year or two, and so that one, and that was a really tough song to write, just emotionally. I knew I had to. I kind of didn't want to, but I kind of persevered with it. I knew that I had to, not only for just like, because it was just such a huge moment in my life, and so I'd say Sunshine is probably the one I'm most connected to.
Yeah, it's a great track. They're all great tracks, but
thank you very much. The
ones I mentioned, they were my favorites. Do you have any live shows planned, a tour on the horizon?
We just finished a month-long residency over here, which has been really fun. We just played every Friday for the month, and then we finished up last Friday when the album, it was like a album release party. But that is it. This feels very strange. It's like the first time in my life that I haven't just gone on tour after releasing a record. And obviously the industry is in a strange place still after COVID. Things are still recovering. There's been a bit of an exodus of booking agents and vans and tour managers and all of that. And so still kind of putting together the pieces since that all collapsed, really. So nothing concrete right now, but I mean, I'd love to tour. I'd love to play these songs for people. So fingers crossed.
If I wanted to make a playlist of the best Dan Croll songs, what are the 5 songs I should have on the playlist?
Oh my God. That's great. Trying to remember my own songs right now. I would say, I mean, if I was to like go through, I mean, I'm on album 4 now. So, I mean, starting at the start, I think From Nowhere, you know, it's my kind of one-hit wonder song. You know, it's my big song that kind of like started everything. You know, that was like a very important song that just symbolizes the start of my career, I guess. So I think I'd start with that one. I'd also pick Home off that album as well. Like I say, that was the one that was one of the first proper songs I feel like I wrote, and kind of thought I could call myself a songwriter now after I wrote that song. And, you know, played it for Paul McCartney, and yeah, that one's been, you know, a successful song for me. So I'd say off that first album, From Nowhere and Home, I would say, I don't know if I'd pick one off Emergent Adulthood, which is maybe controversial, but I think I'd skip over to Grand Plan. That was such a big album for me personally. Yesterday would be a song that I put on that top 5. Yesterday was about that meeting with Paul McCartney. It's kind of like almost like an apology song, you know, that I wasn't kind of more awake for it, you know. I felt like, you know, my anxiety after that, you know, as amazing as it was when I met him, that the anxiety after I left him, I was just like, oh my God, did I make enough? Did I make the most of that opportunity? I should have asked this question. I should have said this. I should have said that. And so that was a big song for me to just let out that anxiety, almost like an apology song. So Yesterday would be on there. Is it bad that I'm looking at my own songs on Spotify in front of me? I don't remember what songs. Oh my God, this is really tough. I think On Top was a really fun song for me, actually. That wasn't on any albums. That was just on an EP. But that was a EP that we did over kind of tail end of COVID. So it was when things kind of in America started to open up a little bit, and I was just desperate to just get out the house like everybody else. And so we kind of, you know, we managed to get me safely on a flight and all of these testings and everything like that. Everyone was in the studio wearing their masks. Everyone was in separate corners of the studio. And it was just a wild experience to look back on how we recorded that song, you know. But also the song itself, I think, was such a fun song. I remember when I came up with the chords for it, and it was almost a bit of a joke at how like kind of happy it was, because I don't think I write that kind of song usually. But I just kind of like stuck with it, and I was like, actually, you know what? Like, even though this is like the darkest time around me right now, this is just like a super sweet song just to kind of like contrast what's going on around me at the moment. And so I feel like that's such a fun song. And we just played this residency, like I mentioned, and it was so fun to play this song live just because it is so kind of contrasting to a lot of the other songs. So I'd say On Top. So we got From Nowhere, Home, Yesterday, On Top. And then I would say, I'd say Talk to You off this album. That's a song that I'm just like really proud of. I think, lyrically, I was like quite proud of it. Just like the general feel of it. It was just kind of like slight kind of disco country feel to it. It's definitely one on the album that I've enjoyed the most, just kind of like listening to kind of on my own. And yeah, it was just about, it was about my breakup, and it was kind of the first breakup, you know, like kind of proper relationship that I'd had in my life, like the longest for sure. And it was a tough breakup, but I think that the hardest part of it was just like the loss of a friendship, more so than the loss of a romantic relationship. Just the friendship aspect of it, just like the day-to-day talk of just like texting, you know. I found myself after the breakup just wanting to like send some silly text or like forward some stupid meme or something like that to her. But I was like, oh no, I can't do that anymore. I can't that's gone. And so it was about kind of mourning that loss of a friendship and just the simple act of talking to someone, I guess.
Yeah, I know that, and that's, relationships are hard, and that's one of the worst things, is, your friends as well, and yeah.
It's tough because you can be compatible. If you're not compatible romantically, I think you can still be compatible as friends, but once you've done the first, you can't really do the latter. So it's kind of, it's just it's a bit of a tough spot sometimes.
Anybody that says, look, we'll just remain friends, it just doesn't work.
No, not in the same way. Not in the same way.
So how do you spend your time in LA when you aren't touring or recording? What do you enjoy?
I mean, I enjoy just like getting out. I'm someone who can't stay inside. I've got to be out. I live kind of next to some hills here. I'm a big fan of just exercise, just getting out. I do a lot of running. I play a lot of soccer, footy. I hate that I call it soccer, but it's something I've adopted now and I hate it. I play football. I played last night. I'm feeling very, very sore right now. But yeah, and so I'd say like running, football, those are my main things. I love to go out and see shows and generally just get out of the house. Nothing indoors. I hate being inside my apartment.
Well, I do a bit of running myself. I took a break for a few years, but I just got back into it, and I can't go running without, some music playing. So what will be on your playlist?
For me, actually, it's kind of strange. Because I spend so much time with my own music or music that is similar, my influences or new music that is similar, it can grow tired very quickly, or I can get kind of like bored of my own stuff very quickly. And so I listen to music that is the complete opposite of what I do. And so usually I run to a lot of kind of metal, a lot of hardcore, really enjoy heavy music. That's kind of like my guilty pleasure in a way. It's my kind of get away from my world. And so, yeah, so a lot of kind of like tech metal and stuff like that, which is very strange, but yeah, very contrasting.
Well, you've just answered one of the questions. What's your guilty pleasure?
Yeah.
Musically.
Just metal. Yeah. I mean, yeah, every now and then I'll just go to like some extravagant metal show. I went to go see Miss Sugar a couple of months ago here, and it was just mind blowing because it's just so far away from what I do. And it's just, and I love it for that. It's just like an entirely different world. The way that the songs are constructed, the sounds, just the show, the light show, everything about it is just incredible. I've got so much respect for those genres, so much respect, probably more respect for their genres than my own. But yeah, that's my guilty, but not so guilty. I love to chat about it and stuff. But yeah, I love metal.
Well, you mentioned you like football. You lived in Liverpool for a long time, so I have to ask you the question: are you red or blue?
I'm a red, much to the dismay of my family, who are entirely blue. Yeah, we were raised in Everton. And so yeah, all my uncles despise the fact that I'm a red, but I think it's their own fault, like raised in Everton, and they were just constantly trying to take me to the Everton shop or to the Everton stadium, and they were just thrusting it upon me. And I was just like, they tried too hard. If anything, it's their own fault.
Well, that's good because I'm a red as well. So happy days.
There we go.
Just a few more, Dan.
Yeah.
I like to ask my guests the following questions. If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be? And I think I probably might know the answer to this, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, probably the one you're thinking Paul McCartney would be the one. Yeah. I definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky to have had so many, amazing moments, but that's one. Also, I'd love to go back to that because even though I was tired and had this nightmare night the night before, it is, I mean, let me restart this question. I mean, I was raised, even though I was born in Stoke and raised in Liverpool, entirely like Scouse family, but I wasn't really raised on the Beatles. And I think most people would expect me to be, but I really wasn't. I was raised on a lot of American music, Beach Boys, James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, people like that. And so when I had that meeting with Sir Paul McCartney, controversially, I wouldn't say I was like this big Beatles fan. And then after that kind of meeting, I think I finally, probably like 22, 23, had my first kind of journey down the rabbit hole, and just then became in my life a huge fan, of everything, just like Wings, Paul McCartney, the Beatles. Like, I'm a completely different person, kind of a different fan of that music now. And so to be able to meet him again now, knowing what I know and the music that I've listened to and come to enjoy even more, would be pretty amazing.
I don't think there's anybody better than him for writing melodies.
No, unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, even, the melodies, but just also it's unpredictable. It's like, especially like his own stuff. And I love the Paul McCartney 2 album, and just like the arrangement of these songs and the production of these songs. It's not simple at all, but it sounds it. He's such like a playful melody writer that the playfulness of these melodies, it's kind of very misleading in a way, because what's happening behind them is so complicated or so complex that he makes it seem so simple. Basically, it's annoying.
For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. So what song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
I would say, I'd probably say James Taylor, maybe like Sweet Baby James, that album. That was like a big one, just for like kind of family road trips. We didn't really leave the UK for holidays. We just stayed in the UK, and we usually went down to Cornwall. And so we'd always drive down from Stoke or Liverpool to Cornwall. And that was like a good 4 or 5 hours. And that would definitely be one of the albums that was kind of played that we'd all sing. And I think it was like kind of like my first introduction to harmony as well, and like country harmonies that I'm a big fan of, that I love. That's another guilty pleasure for me, country music. The cheesier the better sometimes, but I love the kind of typical country harmonies. And so, it's like James Taylor's like probably one of my biggest kind of musical heroes, and biggest inspirations. And so I'd say probably maybe Sweet Baby James or another album of his.
So that's me finished, Dan. Is there anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up? Anything else coming up in the pipeline?
Just that the album's out now, and I hope people enjoy it. That's kind of it. That's all that's happening right now. Yeah,
it is amazing, and I'm not just saying this. I've really, really been enjoying it. Been playing it quite a lot.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. It was great talking to you, and I wish you all the best for the album. And hopefully, we'll see you in Belfast or Ireland at some stage down the line.
I hope so. I'll be back next month, so I'll start planning.
Good. Okay, well, have a good day or night or evening, whatever it is there.
Amazing. All right, thanks so much, Mark.
All right, Dan, take it easy. Bye-bye.